Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most famous stories in human history, Homer's The Odyssey. But, to really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this hero's journey, we're going to ditch the marble statues and the dense ancient poetry. Instead, we're visualizing Odysseus as a scrappy little stickman, fighting against literally impossible odds just to get back home.
And that brings us to the core mystery we're unraveling today. How exactly does one stickman survive angry gods and six-headed monsters just to get home? We're going to track our hero's daunting quest right from the immediate aftermath of the fall of Troy, all the way back to his beloved kingdom of Ithaca. It's an adventure of truly mythic proportions, and mapping it out visually really helps us understand the absolute weight of what he had to endure.
Part 1. A 10-year journey home.
10. That's the magic number you need to keep in mind here. I mean, you'd think that surviving the legendary, decade-long Trojan War would earn our hero a quick, victorious victory lap back to his kingdom, right? A hero's welcome for sure, but nope. Instead, our scrappy protagonist spends an agonizing 10 additional years just trying to return to his island of Ithaca. Imagine that, a full decade of aimless wandering, constantly getting derailed and fighting for his absolute life, while his home and his family remain painfully out of reach just over the horizon. The psychological toll of surviving a 10-year war only to face a 10-year commute? It's staggering.
Part 2. Monsters, Witches, and Gods. So our hero has to survive what is essentially a mythical danger hit list. First up, he faces off against the Cyclops, Polyphemus. This is a terrifying, giant, one-eyed monster who literally treats Odysseus' crew like a midday snack. Then, he has to navigate past the Sirens. Their enchanting, hypnotic songs lure countless sailors to a watery grave. Next, the incredibly powerful witch Circe, who, has a terrible habit of turning men into pigs. And as if his luck wasn't already catastrophically bad, he then has to survive Scylla, a literal six-headed sea monster. Just picture our exhausted stickman trying to outmaneuver this absolute gauntlet of legendary terror, one right after another with basically zero breaks in between.
Now, these obstacles aren't just random bad weather or terrible luck. Actually, the sea god Poseidon is actively making this journey miserable. He's tossing our hero across the violent ocean like a rag doll. Why? Well, because Odysseus, in a desperate bid to escape, blinded Poseidon's son, the Cyclops. So the almighty god of the sea is out for deeply personal, unrelenting vengeance against a mere mortal who is just trying to sail back to his wife. When the ocean itself hates you, a 10-year delay starts to make a whole lot of sense.
Part 3. Trouble back in Ithaca.
So, we actually have dual struggles happening simultaneously here. Out at sea, obviously, Odysseus is fighting for his absolute life against divine wrath and terrifying beasts. But back in Ithaca, his wife Penelope faces a desperate, isolating battle of her own. She remains fiercely and beautifully loyal to her missing husband, but she's being forced to constantly fend off a horde of aggressive, power-hungry suitors. These guys have essentially just occupied her home. They want to marry her and take over the kingdom because they are entirely convinced that Odysseus is dead at the bottom of the Aegean Sea and is never coming back. She's out there using every trick in the book to stall them, but her time is rapidly running out. And hey, we cannot forget the next generation. Meanwhile, his son Telemachus isn't just sitting around letting these arrogant suitors ruin his home and eat his family out of house and home. He is actively searching for any news of his missing father, embarking on his own mini-quest. The family unit is physically shattered, separated by oceans and years, but they're all fighting in their own unique ways to hold the kingdom together and discover the truth.
Part 4. The Beggar King returns.
Okay, here is how the climax goes down. And notice how heavily Odysseus relies on intelligence over brute strength to win the day here. Our tiny warrior executes a very calculated, high-stakes, four-step plan. Step 1. With the help of the powerful goddess Athena, he returns to Ithaca not as a glorious, heavily armed warrior, but cleverly disguised as a lowly, unrecognizable beggar. This lets him safely scout his own palace and see exactly who's still loyal and who's betrayed him. Step 2. At the absolute perfect, most dramatic moment, he strings his legendary bow and reveals his true identity to the shock of everyone in the room. Step 3. Alongside his son Telemachus, he completely defeats the suitors who have plagued his home for years, trapping them right there in the Great Hall. And finally, Step 4. He reunites with his faithful wife Penelope, ultimately restoring peace, order, and love to his kingdom after 20 impossibly long years away.
Part 5. The meaning of the myth. So, you might be wondering, why does this ancient epic still matter today? Well, the Odyssey remains a timeless classic because it explores deep, universal human themes that we can all relate to, even if we aren't exactly fighting six-headed sea monsters on the weekend.
First up is incredible perseverance and courage. I mean, enduring a decade of relentless hardship without ever giving up hope, that's huge. Second is immense loyalty and faithfulness, which is beautifully demonstrated by Penelope's steadfastness in the face of impossible pressure. Third is a really fascinating focus on relying on intelligence and wit over mere muscle. Our hero consistently uses his mind to outwit the Cyclops, escape traps, and ultimately reclaim his throne in disguise. And finally, there's the undeniable magnetic pull of the importance of home and family.
Ultimately, it's considered one of the greatest works of world literature, remaining a classic tale of adventure, wisdom, and the desire to return home. It's fundamentally about that enduring, primal human desire to just weather the seemingly endless storms of life, overcome whatever obstacles are thrown in your path, and finally, walk through your own front door into the arms of the people you love.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought. Look at our scrappy, stickman protagonist one last time. If you were in his shoes, constantly battered by the wrath of the sea god, facing powerful witches and terrifying monsters year after year, separated from everyone you hold dear, would you have the sheer perseverance to make that 10-year journey home? It's definitely something to think about the next time you face an obstacle on your own path. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey, and keep learning.